All right. HDC number one. I appreciate you being here.
Okay, so, man.
The whole point of this show then is talking with content creators. So what kind of creative ventures are taking up most of your thoughts and time these days?
Well, HDC, I'm working on short stories mostly right at the moment. They're near future fiction short stories, all set in the year 2048 or beyond. That's what I'm currently working on.
Okay. So it's just a group of short stories?
Yeah, it's a lot of them. I guess like maybe, some of them are not finished yet, but like 30 maybe or 35.
Are they all, do they like have to do with one another, or are they all standalone on their own things?
It kind of standalone, but it builds a body of work. In other words, each one of them has its own little take on the world of 2048 and what it will be like in the near future. So They all add to the story, more or less, but they are standalone as well.
All right.
Or they're meant to be.
And one of those, we met at a book club here locally in Jacksonville. And I think on the last one, you had one that had to do with this. Was that a whole piece of it or just part of one of the sections?
No, that was one of the stories.
Okay.
I think that was the story Oppie. I bring a different story every time I go to that meeting. So, the key to this whole thing is to keep working and putting more new stuff on the page or in the file, as it were. And also to keep sending them out to various publishers and getting their responses. And lately I've been getting some half-decent responses from some of them, although I'm still unpublished.
Okay. What is this the first type of writing you've done, or have you done other stuff before?
No, my blog has been going since 2013. Findyournation.org. It's a .org, not a .com. I'm not selling anything to anyone, but I've been writing that blog. That's a nonfiction blog since 2013, as I said. And for the last 2 years, I write and post something every week, usually on a Sunday, or if Sunday's not good, then Monday morning. My blog is politically moderate in all things, or dual extremist, depending on how you want to describe it. And the other thing I do on my blog, other than political themes and political postings and political thoughts, is the other thing I do is scientific news and information.
Oh, okay. Since that started in 2013, what's your process for doing that weekly?
Well, just get up on Sunday morning with an idea of what I want to write, and it takes me probably half a day to get something down and revised good enough to actually submit it and post it. Then post it and have lunch.
About how long are those posts?
I'm not sure what the word count would be. It's all, when I type those things up, they're all single space, maybe a page, or they're probably all under a page. Yeah, they're under a page.
So since 2013, you got quite a list of things.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've got quite a few things on there. Mostly, as I say, or all, as I said, are moderate in perspective. It's unfortunate in today's world that we are so divided, politically speaking. And my mission is to, try to help bring conservatives and liberals together. They don't seem to have a lot in common, but that's the point of my blog, is to find those commonalities and write about them.
All right. So when you say moderate, that means kind of more central politically, not moderate like it touches on politics moderately.
Central. I have good friends who are conservative and married to a fairly liberal woman, my wife.
Okay.
So I like to stand in the middle there somewhere and try to get the best of both worlds.
Okay. Did you say
what's your political perspective? Would you characterize yourself as left, center, or right?
There's a good saying that when you were 20, if you weren't liberal, you didn't have a heart. And when you're 40 and you're not conservative, you don't have a brain. So that's funny. And maybe it's a little truth to it. Like the more you get invested in the country and how government works, or just the more stuff you have, or the farther you've looked into the future, then maybe you lean a little more to the conservative side. I'm not sure. Everybody's different, but I did take one of those.
I know some people that are dragging their feet on going to the conservative side. Yeah.
Yeah. It's there's some other humorous thing that says liberals are just conservatives that haven't been robbed yet. So that's funny. But
yeah,
I took a online quiz, me and my wife, one time, because she is probably more to the liberal side than I am. Although I think it goes mainly issue based, and I think that's why we probably don't fit in much to the political feeling nowadays, where you have to be on one side or the other, because it's some stuff I'm what the left would call really left, and then some of the stuff I'm more right. I'm not sure if you look at left and right as like a sphere, and eventually you go far enough one direction, you're on the extreme of the other. I'm not sure if that's how politics work, but it does seem like it goes in cycles. But we took it online, just one of those 10 question things that does like popular topics, and then it shows you where you are on the scale.
On the graph, right?
Yeah. I was more to the left than my wife was. So, and we were both still right around the center. So I don't know. I think that's the Generation X point of view.
Yeah. They're meaningless terms, left and right, to me. They don't make a lot of sense, but there are certain tendencies to, kind of identify with one side or the other. It's unfortunate that a lot of times that, in my opinion, a lot of times that it becomes a adversarial kind of thing. And I prefer, open discussion to reach a consensus. That's my take on things.
Yeah, I think because it has that label of left and right on things, people feel like they have to take a side and then agree with everything the other side says. I'm definitely not that way. So yeah, I agree. It's you got to look at every issue and then make your own decision. So,
and that's the important part, is the issues part. A lot of times when I post, some of the people get back to me and make comments, but a lot of times they're just looking to point fingers at one side or the other. If they're Republicans, they're downplaying or disparaging the liberal side, and vice versa. So rather than focusing on the issues, so I try to focus on the issues as much as possible, or get people to focus on the issue as much as possible, and when I post on my blog.
Yeah, I think if you can't take that step back and see the rhetoric on both sides, then you have to start asking yourself the question of, are you just on a team, or are you thinking for yourself? So, yeah.
Exactly.
So you've been doing that since 2013 weekly. And then when we were at that, the writing meeting last week or the week before, Did you say you used to be a poetry teacher?
A teacher for 33 years, English literature,
Okay.
humanities, and computer technology.
Whoa, that's a mix.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's quite a mix.
Yeah. Thank you. The computer technology is where I got onto the topic of emergent technology, which is a big theme for me in my writing. The tagline is this: in the near future, mankind is going to remain stuck in its dystopian rut that it's been in for centuries, but on the other hand, technology is going to develop exponentially and wildly in the near future. But what I was saying was that I taught a class at one time on emergent technology, and that's what got me started. If you go to your computer and you just Google up emerging technology, a lot of very interesting things will pop up, and those are some of the things that I like to write about.
How'd you get into teaching a class on it?
The school I was at, it's a public school here in Jacksonville. It's called Stanton. It's one of the best public schools in the nation. And we had 3 computer labs. And I was teaching in one of them, and mostly teaching applications and very little programming. But I also had to look up and find a new class that was on the Florida Department of Education list of possibilities for technology and computers, and I found the title Emergent Technology. And so I taught that for a while, and my students would do websites, and I learned a hell of a lot by working with the kids.
I remember when the movie Minority Report came out, and they had a special about it, or a behind the scenes about it, talking about how they had so many different futurists to kind of shape the way that the future was going to be on that. Is that kind of what you talked about, or in that class? Were you like looking towards the future, or were you looking at how technology affects now into the future?
The effects of technology and some of the things they're doing, like MIT lab, those people are way out in front on technology and development of technology. And then, just some of the things that are happening in medicine and in all branches of science, really. So like I say, if you Google emerging technology, you'll be amazed at what you find. So it's a matter of kind of monitoring developments. And that's pretty easy to do these days, because as soon as you start Googling in that area, they start pushing stuff at you. You know how it works in the technology as far as that goes. So, there's always things to look at and read and think about and use as inspiration for my writing. I wanted to mention that I'm going to be presenting at the Florida Writers Association, their yearly conference this October, on that topic, emergent technology and science fiction, and how science fiction writers, but really all writers, can use the kinds of developments that they will see in science as inspiration for their writing.
All right. Where is that going to be?
That's in Altamont down near Orlando in October, the 20th to the 22nd. I'll be presenting on Sunday, the 22nd.
And the Florida Writers Association has a website that has all the particulars on it?
Yeah,
Okay.
They have the full schedule. There's a headliner, and ashamedly, I can't tell you who the headliner is, but it will be somebody very interesting and big in the writers world, and they have lots of classes and workshops and they're going to be doing this year a lot on AI. AI is going to be they're going to have a panel discussion, and part of at least my presentation will also talk about the implications and ramifications of AI. In my opinion, we've entered a brand new age, and it is the age of AI coming up that we're now beginning to see ourselves in.
My mom was a English teacher as well.
Oh, really?
I taught a couple of classes at University of Phoenix back in the day when I was working in Virginia, and it wasn't the online one, it was an in-campus one, but they had some great programs like a Write Point that explained. I did a lot of classes where you had to write papers. So to check a paper, you'd run it through the program Write Point, and as a student, you could run it through there too, and it would explain it was more like an advanced grammar and tense checker. And then they also had a plagiarism checker that checked the paper against all the other papers ever turned in and to online. How do you think if you were teaching these days, how would you be able to tell if it was the student versus some sort of computer intelligence that wrote the paper in the style of the student?
Every paper is submitted, has been for years now, been submitted through a checker to see, like you said, whether or not it's been plagiarized or if any part of it's plagiarized. And that's pretty easy to do.
Do you think
sometimes it did happen.
Do you think it's going to be that easy now? Like if you could, as a student, you could put in 10 or so papers that you've written to some sort of chat GPT or something, and then say, write a paper about whatever the assignment is in the style of me. What is that going to be included in some plagiarism?
Sure, that'll happen in the style of me. Yeah. I could probably in the near future be able to tell some chat bot to write a story in the style of me. I would never do that, but I could, and it would be boilerplate, and it would appear to be half decent, but it wouldn't be me. Same thing will happen with student papers and that kind of thing. Now, I'll tell you where AI will be good for education is that students will be able to go to AI, and AI will walk them through the process of developing their awareness and their knowledge in a certain field or in a particular kind of on a particular course. Sort of like the Socratic method, where Socrates would just be asking questions. AI will just be kind of prompting them along to the next step, to the next thing that they need to know or think about and to kind of internalize and learn. So AI could be very good for education in some ways, but you're right, it could also be used for plagiarism, and that's why they have to be completely fact-checked. There's some things going on as far as making sure that everything has a kind of a watermark to prove that it's not AI. And of course, the technology is going to be hard to keep a hold of, that's for sure.
Yeah, I found that grading papers it took longer to grade a paper that had plagiarism in it, just because you had to do the investigative work and run it through all the checkers and then just make sure it wasn't parallel thought versus the exact thing. And I think that if you knew how the student spoke and how they wrote, then you could probably tell it wasn't them just by reading it. But if you go into a class with a student that's always using it, that might be a little different. So you've never seen a sample of what they've actually written. You're just always seeing something that's generated. It'd be interesting if
my classes, they would do most of their essays in class. So that's one way to get around it. There'll be a lot more teachers doing in-class essays than ever before. Well, that's always been a strategy and a good a good technique.
Yeah. Well, then, how do you think that being a literature teacher affected your writing of science fiction? Obviously, I think it would help since you know the classics, but
Well, HDC, I'll tell you, 33 years of teaching literature, and I can hold up my end on a conversation on the topic of authors and writing, but as far as writing science fiction, there's there's no substitute for sitting down and putting your hands on the keyboard. You just have to, and as I said, it's more like now it's what's unfolding in the realm of science and using that as inspiration, and then coming up with an interesting idea, or at least hopefully an interesting idea that you're pleased enough with that it will keep you working on it until you get an actual story on the screen. Writing a story takes about a week of solid working, and then it's never done. You always, every time you go back to it, you start at the beginning and revise and rework it and try to make it better each time.
Right. What's your normal process for starting from zero on a story to getting to the point where you've gotten sick of it enough to say that it's finished?
Well, it's not really getting sick of it, but it is saying to yourself, okay, this is good enough to go. But the process, like I said, is just looking for an idea that's intriguing enough to you that because most writers, good writers, I'm going to put myself in the good, not great category, but good writers will write for themselves. It's a selfish act, write things that they find interesting and informative. Here's the thing: for writing a science fiction, you have to kind of balance two things. I'm naturally an optimistic person, but if you want to be a successful writer of science fiction, you have to write scientific kind of dystopia, because people are interested in dystopian kind of ideas and thoughts and what could possibly go wrong. But you have to kind of balance those two things. The ideal and the real. I want things to work out fine, but if you can't write a story about how good everything is, nobody would read it. It would be dull. So you might want to put up that graphic now.
Okay.
That graphic shows you. Can you still hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, that graphic shows you some of the worst of things that could possibly be happening. It says 2030, but in the near future. So that would be a starting place. I mean, I'm not a big conspiracy theorist. I don't think all these things are going to happen. But what you do is you write the dystopian vision as a kind of a warning to people that if not careful, this is the way things could end up. So you can see there, what are some of the things in the near future that could go wrong? Well, right in the middle, robot workforce, the AI will, be taking over our jobs. And I'm not saying they're going to take over all the jobs, but the current projection is that a person and an AI can take the place of 3 or 4 other people in the workplace. So part of the dystopian vision is how AI is going to take over our jobs and make us overly dependent. And if we're not careful, we'll just kind of give into it. not thinking about what's happening. And guess what? AI will be in charge, and we'll be doing what AI tells us to. That's the dystopian vision.
Where do you come down? Where do you come down on the whole alien life or extraterrestrial
Different
life?
than when I was a child. When I was a child, I would say, I've never seen one, so I don't believe it. But now I know for reading other people, and that there's almost certainly life out there somewhere. That's pretty inevitable. I don't necessarily write stories about alien. I'm interested in those kinds of stories, but I don't really write. That's not what I write. I don't write stories where aliens come down and pick people up and take them off, and then flying saucers. I just don't do that. My writing is a little more grounded than that. But I agree with the speculative scientists, Neil deGrasse Tyson and others, that there's got to be life out there somewhere, because the universe is just so vast, it's impossible to imagine otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I stand on that.
How do you think that how quickly do you think the computer intelligence is going to change the world as we know it now, I guess?
Very, very rapidly. And I'll qualify that a little bit. When I was teaching 30 years ago at Stanton, we had one computer, and we got a couple, 2 or 3 computer labs eventually in the next coming years. And I thought computers were just going to take over education immediately. And well, it didn't really happen on my timeline, but it is slowly happening. So your question was, how soon do I think AI is going to, just expand, and it's going to be very rapid. And on the other hand, it might not happen according to my exact timeline, but it's going to be pretty damn quick. And that there are economic factors that drive that. It's just going to be cheaper for people to use AI for so many things that they're not going to. They're not going to spend a lot of time considering the ramifications of using AI, and they're not going to certainly not do it because of any concern for, the effects on humanity. But it's going to be pretty rapid and pretty sudden. And but on the other hand, people are going to just kind of gradually ease into it and hardly even notice as it's happening. It's people just. If you think about what life was like 30 years ago, some of the things we're doing now, would have never occurred to us. But as I was trying to say, people do kind of just go along and take these advances in AI kind of for granted. And that's one of the problems, in my opinion.
How do you think it affects, since you do this, the political blog, how do you think AI works into politics?
Well, if you want me to if you want a good positive answer, AI could be used to resolve some of the issues that the conflicts that we're kind of manufacturing for ourselves, and kind of just kind of. Are you familiar with the term crowdsourcing?
Yes.
Okay. So AI could be like a crowdsourcer of opinions on various issues, and AI could, in a positive sense, taken in a positive sense, make some of these, not make some of the decisions for us, but at least point us in a moderate or an effective direction. So we could use AI to generate kind of an agenda for ourselves and a kind of and it helps us to consider the ramifications of various conflicts. So it could be helpful and politically in that sense.
When you're writing about emergent technology, how do you shape your story with it? Do you have the positive view or the negative view, or are you trying to twist them in together, or do you have just computer technology that are
in
different?
my writing? I don't start off a story and say, well, I'm going to be, I'm going to have this going to be the dystopian saga of the century. I don't do that. And in fact, most of my writing is fairly grounded and it's about real people in their situations that they would be running into, but in the context of 2048. And 2048, things are going to happen, and most of them are fairly, fairly obvious. I think you're not going to be driving your own car anymore. Cars can be driving you around. The professional across the desk from you is not going to be a person. It'll be any AI that's programmed to, resolve your or to help you with any decisions you're making on a professional level. One of the things that I learned from studying that emergent technology class is going to be, of course, very useful in medicine for the diagnosis of cancers and those kinds of things. So that, there's both positive and negative things that are going to happen. A lot of people ask, well, why don't we have flying cars? Well, we already do. We already have flying cars. There's several prototypes of flying cars available. They're quite expensive, but they have them. So what's it going to be like? I don't have a clear crystal ball, but I would say probably some things are going to be some things in the near future are going to be a little harder for us to deal with, and then there's going to be some quirky shit that happens too. There'll probably be a religion based on AI, probably, and well, in general, AI is going to be. It's like I say, we're not even going to notice that it's happening, but we're going to be becoming so dependent on it. That's my vision for the future.
Do you think you think it's going to be gradual and people won't know it? Or do you think it's going to be like the world seems like in 2019, the world seems to have, from my perspective, to have changed a lot with COVID, the lockdowns and all that it seems like life's not going to be the same anymore. Is it going to be that moment for computer intelligence too? Or is it just going to be, you got this gradual phone and then 20 years later, you're more dependent on it than you were?
Completely dependent upon it. You'll either have an implant or you could wear it on your shirt. But if you wear it on your shirt, you might throw it into the laundry. But you'll be always on. You'll have total access at all times. You'll have a personal computer assistant with you at all times that you can converse with and talk to. That AI will become your best friend because they'll be programmed to be your best friend and to respond to you with empathy and to kind of help you in every possible way. And like I say, we're just going to become wildly dependent on them. I'm writing a story now where everybody is married to an AI. Everybody doesn't have a husband or a wife. They have spousals. They're AI mates. So, and they're super efficient. You know, all the housekeeping chores will be taken care of. You know?
Yeah, it's going to replace the dog and all the people in your life.
Yeah. Well, that would be a tough one for me. I'm a big dog guy.
Yeah.
I don't have a dog right now, but I love it. I love the animals I've had. Do you have any pets?
Yep, we're big dog people. We don't have one now. We're in between dogs, but we last had we got a dog from the pound in Oregon when we were out there, and we were living in an apartment at the time, and we were just walking through and saw this little 4-pound Chihuahua sitting in a bunch of towels, and she didn't look very good, and she was about 10 years old. So we're like, well, let's get that, and we won't. Yeah, she'll be around for a little while, but she was around for 7 years after that. So it's longer than I thought.
My wife and I used to be puppy raisers for the blind program, Southeastern Guide Dogs. And we thought that would be easier because, you give them away. You don't have to wait for them to get old, but it wasn't any easier because you do have to give them away.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you were in Oregon. Where were you at?
We were in Salem.
I used to live in Oregon. Do you know where Newport is?
I do.
Yeah.
Okay.
I lived in a little mill town 6 miles from Newport. It's called Toledo, Oregon.
Yeah. I know where that is. Yeah, we were out there for a few years, but different, the left and right coasts. They call it the coast. We call it the beach over here on the east.
Yeah. I grew up out there, and, figuring out, orientate myself towards the ocean. So, east and west is sometimes a little bit difficult because I'm thinking, no, that the ocean should be over there. And
yeah, it's on the wrong side.
It's on the wrong side now.
Yeah.
All right. What else would you like to know?
Well, how about talk a little about process? Like when you're writing, like a lot of times I find myself looking at YouTube videos of famous writers or not famous writers just talking about where they write and their normal daily time they go to write. What do you find works for you, and has it changed over the years?
Well, yeah, I thought I'd be a writer when I was a boy, but working did get in the way, and now I'm retired. So it's get up in the morning and have breakfast. The best thing to do, though, is to think before you get out of bed about what you want to do that day for a few minutes before you actually get out of bed. Then you have breakfast. Then you sit down and write what you thought about earlier when you were just waking up, and get some things down on paper and work for an hour or two in the morning. And then it's like lunch, get in the hot tub for a half an hour, and then take a nap, and then get some more work done in the evening or the afternoon. And in the evenings, just sit around with my wife and watch some really bad TV.
Do you use
That's my technique.
Do you use any particular like programs for writing?
I'm still using Word. There are others that a lot of writers use that are probably a little bit more, a little better in some ways, but I just use Word.
Do you take notes like throughout the day if you have a particular scene or a line that comes into your head? Do you write that down, or do you just count on remembering it next time you're gonna write?
No, you gotta get it down on the screen. I spend a lot of time typing on the laptop. Is basically the answer to your question. What's my process? My process is typing and 10-finger typing.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't really see how anybody could make it these days, handwriting, and then that's just adding another step that's kind of a waste of time, in my opinion. But then I can do 10-finger typing, so.
So no refrigerator and longhand like Thomas Wolfe then?
No. No. Now, I occasionally, if I don't have immediate access, I will write something down on a legal pad or on a piece of paper for later. But yeah, you can't trust your memory, because that's not going to work. It's going to, the good thoughts aren't going to stay in there forever. Now, I do recommend mowing your own lawn, which I'm going to do later on after I get off of here, because some of my best ideas come while I'm doing something mundane like mowing the lawn. And then I have to turn the mower off and take a few notes.
Yeah.
The best thing to do for me is when I lay down at night to go to sleep, turn off the light, close my eyes. But I don't go to sleep. I think about what I'm going to do the next day. I dream about it sometimes. I wake up in the morning and refresh my thoughts about what I'm going to do that day, and then have breakfast and sit down at the computer and put some stuff in a file. Make sure I save it. Okay. That's the process.
Have you ever thought about self-publishing?
I'm not a big fan of self-publishing. I'm sure I know a lot of writers, good writers who do. I think possibly you mentioned that you are a writer. I never asked you if you were self-published or not. I'm not a big fan of it myself, not personally for me. I just try to make the stuff I write as good as I possibly can, and don't worry about when it gets into print. Somebody's going to print my stuff eventually and put it out there for me. It might be after I'm dead, but it'll happen. What do you think about self-publishing?
I like it. I've read a lot of bad self-published stuff, and
I've that's the downfall is people think that they're done with something and they say, well, I'll publish it. Yeah. You're never done. You're never
got to
get
a good editor, and even then you're going to read it. If you ever read it over again after it's printed, you're going to find mistakes, or you're going to go whether it's a comma in the wrong place or a word error or something. Every time you read through it, you're going to find something. But yeah, I like self-publishing. Okay. The Amazon KDP, that seems like it works. I'd rather do that than publish through like a self-publisher. I went through one with my first book in 2012, and I think the self-publishing houses are just there to make money off the people that are writing. So
for some of them, but there are others that are good, but it's just
I don't get the calls from them. I get the calls from the people that say we want to get you in this event, and we want to screen your book for a movie. And then I just because they say we really like it, and then I go, oh, what's the summary of it? What's the main character? What are you talking about? So yeah, it's that first one I did, and then I redid that one some years later on KDP after I started using the Amazon, and that works pretty well. I mean, Melville died poor too, so maybe some stuff gets printed and realized after death, and that's okay. But as you said before, a lot of writing is you're doing it for yourself. But I think if you like what you write, then there's probably other people out there that like it too. You just got to find them.
Yeah. I think too many writers, they produce a good thing, a novel, and all the people I know who are writers are good writers. But a lot of times they do one good thing and they spend the rest of their time, maybe they self-publish it, and then they go places and talk about it and try to sell a few books. But, you know, to me, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, you know, try to keep trying to push that rock up the hill like Sisyphus is the thing that a lot of writers are doing. And to me, it's time on the keyboard and writing new stuff and being inspired by new ideas and technology that I see around me.
So then, besides the Florida Writers Association that you have coming up in October, what other stuff do you have in the works for the near future before the machines take over?
The Jacks by Jacks Literary Arts Festival is coming up. This year is going to be in December. I'm hoping to present there. And I'm, you know, of course, still working on my presentation that I'll be doing at FWA. I've done that a couple of times, and I'm revising it and adding to it as and getting ready for October. So, the other things I'm doing are going to the local writers group, like the one you and I met at, TS's science fiction group on the last Monday of the month here in Atlantic Beach at the library, and the Beaches Library down there. Mm-hmm. So that's what I've been doing with my writing time. Like I said earlier, I've been hanging out with some of the film bar people. A lot of things going on with those film bar people as far as making short films and those kinds of things. And so there's a lot of interesting people to kind of network with involved in that group. And they're doing some good stuff here in Jacksonville, making short films, and one or two of them are actually good enough to be kind of picked up and put on the national stage lately. So, that's a good thing that's happening here locally. And so I'm involved in that.
All right. Well, I appreciate you coming on and talking today. Quite interesting. Look forward to reading some of your stuff when you get it. I mean, if you get it to the point where you need some people to read, you let me know.
Thanks, man. Come to the meetings. I bring something new to TS's meeting every time, once a month.
Okay.
I'd like to read some more of your stuff. You write under the T.R. Monroe?
Yep. Is that what T, R period Monroe.
Okay.
It's on Amazon. It's like I did a couple of shorter, like novella length ones with another guy from the writing group that are science fiction-y, and then I had a few other short ones and some poetry books and things like that I did on my own. But yeah, they're out there for the chat bots to draw from, so they can.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the chat box. Anyway, we'll read each other, man. And thanks for having me on today.
Yeah. All right. I appreciate it. So we'll do this closeout, and then I'll talk to you in a minute on the other side of this. All right.
Okay, good.